Hello and welcome to the Audacity Factor. As promised, I'm here with my husband, David Flynn. My name is Kathryn Daw, your host here, also the founder of our community on Patreon. Please join me there. You can join for free. I also have 2 paid membership levels, so please check it out and take advantage of the resources that are there for you. So, David,
Yes.
we're going to have a conversation today about codependency.
Yes, but I'm really nervous and I don't know if to look at you or the camera.
You can do both if you need to, but we're going to look at the
I
camera.
can't do both.
Okay, well,
Let's
you
go
could
first.
try. So we're going to talk a little bit about codependency. David and I both have experienced codependency at its deepest and darkest level. So we first of all want you all to know that you are not alone in experiencing this. And hopefully anything we have here to share with you can be helpful for you to be able to, number 1, stop sacrificing yourself. Number 2, what's the second thing you would say?
So nervous. No, stop sacrificing yourself and believe in yourself. Believe that you're correct.
Right. And believe that you're valid. You have valid views, you have valid needs.
Yes, you have all the power, but you don't believe you do when you're in.
Exactly it. And that's when we can feel like someone's taken our power away from us, when in fact, the reality is
We have all the power. We can make these decisions that for us, not for them.
right. Right.
We-
And right, that's exactly
we
key.
cannot make decisions for them.
Right. Right.
We can
We can want to help, but
we can
that's
support.
Mhm.
We can, when they're moving positively, we can always support. We always want to support. They need your support, but they have to be positive.
Right. And that's rooted, I think, in, so David and I are both enablers. That's been our role in the codependent relationship. I don't know that there would be somebody on the other side of that relationship making this video, making a video. So that's why we're here to help support you, typically as the compassionate one, as the empathetic one, as the one that wants to forgive and can give someone the benefit of the doubt. But when do we say enough? When comes the point that we stop sacrificing everything about us to try to make a difference for this other person when we don't see any effect? It in fact spirals and it just gets worse, doesn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah.
My own journey, I thought started 5 years before my first wife passed away. And should I give background on that?
You can if you want
Well,
to.
my wife passed away from substance abuse. When I met Kathryn and we started discussing it, a year or so after her death, we after discussing with her and diving in deep, I found out it was more of that wasn't a 5-year journey. It was a 10 or 12-year journey that I enabled. I just took part in the process just to keep the peace most of the time. So as I look back, and I do encourage people to look back and draw on your mistakes and your positive experiences, but don't live there. Don't be a tourist, or be a tourist. I'm sorry, be a tourist. Always have a ticket back to the present, because that's the best place to be. But I did everything that's in the codependency book. I could have written it myself. I have met hundreds.
Tell us about the book. It's called
Codependent No More. It's a very old book about just flat out codependency. And it is so repeatable. That was her phone. It was not my phone. It's so repeatable. It's a template. I've met hundreds of people who raise their hand to every codependent question. Did you make excuses for your spouse or loved one? Did you bail them out of jail? I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on, but everybody raises their hand to every question if you've truly been in a codependent relationship.
And we'll put a link to that book here in the description of this video so that you can check it out. And what do you believe was kind of your first step in recognizing your own codependency,
Uh,
your own part in creating the codependent dynamic?
I had gone to some Al-Anon. Actually, I had stopped drinking myself. Thought that was going to fix it. Of course, you hide all the alcohol. You do everything you do as a codependent, somebody that's in active substance abuse. Um, I did. I went to Al-Anon. It didn't really stick with me, and then I started seeing a therapist, and she recommended that Favor Friends and Voices of Recovery. It's a national organization. Um,
We'll put a link to that in
I
here as well for
and
you.
and I walked in there that Tuesday, um, not knowing what to do, and immediately there were 4 people in that room that I knew personally. So I was guided that day by the universe, your God, whatever you want, however you want to frame it. I sat in that room for almost 3 years while my wife uh, continued to abuse and eventually kill herself with alcohol. But
So go ahead.
I found that warm place that I needed where, I went I remember that first meeting like it was yesterday. I walked in, I'm just going to listen. All I have to do is listen. That's all I have to do. Talked for 50 minutes straight, and they were glad I was there. And so
Because what's one of the things that we do as that enabler, as that part of the codependent dynamic, is to pretend everything's okay, isolate ourselves. We don't tell because we think this next time it's going to change and it's going to be different, and nobody then needs to know. Was that your experience?
and that's such a wonderful. I believe that all enablers are good empathizers and very loving people, or they wouldn't have put themselves in that position.
Right.
Um, to break yourself from that is almost, and I don't like to make this comparison, but it's just like not being an alcoholic anymore,
Right. It's a
not being a
breaking
drug
an
addict,
addiction. Yeah.
because it's obviously you don't have the withdrawals and physical um, immediate things that go along with those. But you do have to learn again. Like, do I trust? I mean, I've been lied to for over 12 years, and I believed the lies. I mean, I got to the point where, well, I have to
And
believe that because
you wanted to believe them, right?
I can't go to work today unless I believe that lie. And when you come out of that and you meet other people, I know I've met several people that slid right back into the same relationship because that's what they were used to. Thought it was going to be different again, but they didn't seek any kind of outside help, and it took 6 months for me to understand, um, from going to favor meetings, that I was important, and that was when it kind of kicked in for me. When I realized that I was more important than anything right now, because if I wasn't going to be healthy, if she decided to get healthy, I wasn't going to be there to help her.
Right. And I think that can be a really key factor. And especially if you've been in one of these relationships long term, is to be able to take the steps that you need to number one, take responsibility for yourself, because it's got to be about you and what you need to do to move forward with your life and not repeat not to repeat the pattern. It's the same movie with a different cast completely, which I will admit to doing myself after I left a 10-year abusive relationship. I repeated the same exact pattern with a friend, and it took me being able to finally stand up for myself, speak up for myself, and own that I have needs and I have wants, and that I am valuable and worthy of having those met. It can't be always about us trying so hard to meet somebody else's needs that we don't get anything in return except for exhaustion, feelings of powerlessness, helplessness. Can be even devolve into hopelessness. I know for me it did. And to you come into this state of you don't know what to do, what not to do, what to say, what not to say. but it doesn't matter. And that was really, I think, the point I came to, was that it didn't matter. It would never get any better. It was never not going to be that dynamic. It would always be that, until I chose to remove myself, because, it always takes two to remove myself from the dynamic. But then it literally, you're left with the aftermath. So it's up to you to
Change,
seek help,
seek help,
support.
support. I separated from my wife the last 3 years before she passed away, but I stayed in touch. I offered help for her, but at that point, I'd gotten to the point where I had planned everything. All her recovery was planned by me, and the fruits of that labor was just 30 days of sobriety, 90 days of sobriety. And then finally I got to the point where it was time for me to leave for myself.
Right. And that's really the key step, is that you have to be able to do it for yourself. Remember that you are doing this for yourself. You have to, you're the only one that can recover the recognition that you are valuable, just as valuable as every other single person. That person is not more valuable than you are. And you can't create the scenario that you want. You may think that the potential's there. The potential's always been there. You cannot create something from the point of the potential you believe it has. You have to create from the reality that it is.
Yes, you can't set yourself on fire to keep somebody else warm.
Because what
Yes.
happens to you?
You burn out. You burn out. And for those of you where some of this is hitting home, you're not alone. This is a template, just like I was talking about the codependent book. This repeats itself. The people in your life that you're codependent with are never going to change. The only way they're going to change is if you change. I've seen it happen. I've seen people leave. I hoped it would happen in my case, but it did not. But I've seen it happen within my
can.
favorite group.
Mhm.
Is when you start living a different life, sometimes they decide they don't want to do what they're doing anymore. And it can change, but most of the time it is simply not going to change.
Right. And that can't be your expectation,
Yeah.
or that can't be your reason for making changes, because they will then be temporary.
They still have to be there. They have to decide.
Right. Yes. And they have to decide, but what you do for yourself can't be dependent on them and any choices that they make. It may be kind of a side effect, and it may take, but from my own experience, and I think from David's too, that is not the norm. That is the minority, as opposed to the majority of what happens in these cases. But again, you have to do it for
I
you.
just remembered when you asked me the question about when I decide.
Mhm.
My therapist picked at random. She had a kind face of the group of people that was looking for therapists. Is that a word? Therapist.
We can make it a word. Lasso's fans here.
So Cassie was a godsend. She had been in the exact same position I was. So that started me on my own path, that I could live my own life and still support. But I couldn't get any of that other time back that I spent codepending, and I couldn't stay there in the mire that I was in.
And that's what it is. It's a mire. I hearken it back to, it's quicksand, but it's a quicksand of our own making, quicksand that's made to our specifications with the ingredients that we put in it. So for us our lesson is to learn not to do that, and to be able to form solid ground for ourselves, so that we have stability, because we're the ones that don't have the stability in that scenario. We're the ones that at any point in time, the rug can be pulled out from under you because of some, choice that they made, and it's so that's part is in our control to create a stable place for ourselves. And from that place is the place that you can make much better choices, much more empowered choices for yourself and for what needs to happen then, whether it's, a completely disengaging from the relationship or whatever it is that, you feel you need. Know that it does take steps as well. But it doesn't have to be as hard as you think. It doesn't have to take as long as you believe it is. But I think our message really is to start.
Just take one step away. Get comfortable with that step. Then
Right.
take another step.
Right. In spite of the uncertainty, or
just like any kind of substance abuse recovery, it's a long journey. It's a very long journey. Don't expect to do it in a day. Don't expect to do it in a week. Some people go the rest of their lives, especially those in substance abuse. But the codependent is no different.
Right.
You have to say that you get comfortable that next step, which you could get 10 steps out, and all of a sudden you get drawn 7 steps back, but you're still 3 steps away from where you were. So you continually move away and get your life back.
Right. And it's a practice. It's our ability to practice doing that, practice making those choices that are for our highest good, because it's got to be for us. And then, we can act then from that place. But again, it's a practice we talked about it this morning about because we're both enablers, we have to be mindful of where else we enable, and to rein in those tendencies that we both have. I think together it's, we work really well together, but we know what it's like to have the opposite. So for us, it is so worth our ability to be open and collaborative and supportive and compassionate on all the things, and honest, which brings you all the trust that you wanted previously, but you didn't get. So for us, but we both did a lot of work first before we met each other. I spent 2 years alone, because I knew I had to recover myself and my ability to make choices for myself that were for my good. And so that I learned how to support myself, not undermine myself, because that's what that codependent enabling behavior does. We undermine ourselves, lose our trust in ourselves, and then it's something then in the aftermath we have to relearn how to do. We have to rebuild that trust with ourselves. And I have a video on rebuilding trust. It's an interview. It's down at the bottom of the YouTube. If you scroll down, it is down at the bottom of the list. It's called Rebuilding Trust. It's an interview with my friend Gwendolyn. So take a look at that if that's something that is hitting home for you as well. Any last, this is our first, I think, in a series of videos that we're going to do. We'll put links to the book and to the favor.
This again. I'm not as nervous as that.
Yeah, see? Yeah.
I still don't know what to do with my hands.
See, now that's what happens when he does something with his hands. All right. This is Kathryn and David. We're going to sign out for today. A happy Labor Day weekend to everyone, and we will see you in the next video.